Oh, I was muted. Hello, hello, hello. Okay, better get rid of this so I don't hear anything. Hello. Okay, I'm still getting used to like streaming from Zoom to YouTube and also having an Instagram live stream on this as well. How is everyone? I'm going to start by talking. Hello, if you are joining. Oh my God, this angle's a bit of a weird angle. My live stream. I'm going to start by talking about self trust. Anyone that jumps on live, whether you're here on YouTube, whether you're here on Instagram, any questions, let me know. I am so excited. I love that I'm doing these weekly. So if you're like, what are you doing weekly? What is this? This is Call with JP Wednesday. So basically, I get on a live stream. You can also join me here on live on Zoom and you can submit questions. You can ask questions in real time. It's not a full like Q&A. I'm just going to riff. I'm going to pick out what is the kind of best questions. But if you are like, I want more of this and I want to have the ability to ask questions in real time and get like big substantial answers, definitely come and join my mastermind. But let's chat and all the details. Show notes below, link in bio for my Instagrams. I'm just getting up any questions that I may have. Hello to everyone joining. But yeah, let's speak about self trust because I found that self trust has been a big theme in all of my conversations the past couple of weeks. And you will start to learn that the topics that I speak about and riff on in these lives and in these calls are topics that I'm really having conversations with my clients and I'm having these deep conversations and is really like a theme. And I actually got interviewed for a podcast yesterday morning, and one of the questions that I got asked, which I thought was absolutely brilliant, but one of the questions that I got asked is, how do you actually build self trust? It's really all well and good to speak about it. It's all well and good to kind of advocate for self trust, but how do you build it? And the analogy that I used is self trust is like a muscle. So if you go to the gym, what happens? And you're doing weight training, you are building a muscle. And the more that you do the weight training, the more consistent that you are, the more that you are consciously making an effort to go and do that weight training, you are going to build muscles. You are going to strengthen your muscles as well. And that's how I want you to start to consider self trust is how are you actually consistently, as if you were like weight training, building that muscle and creating the strength to always assert self trust. Because I think so much of us actually spend a lot of our life just kind of going through the motions, not trusting ourselves, not trusting our own perceptions, not trusting our own opinions. And I always say, if you do not have self trust, you will not back yourself. And if you are not backing yourself, what do you really have? And you need to build that self trust muscle. So if you are in a room with 100 other people that are disagreeing with your opinion, you need to be so rooted in what you believe in that you can say, okay, I mean, that sucks that you guys don't see my perspective, but I'm so rooted in who I am and I'm so rooted in what I believe. And again, I always say this to my clients, it doesn't mean what you believe or what your opinion is right or wrong. There is only neutral. It's in line with your values, but I want you to start to strengthen that self trust muscle because really that's the foundation. It's probably one of the biggest reasons why I started this business is, my tagline per se, what I always say is, and it's been like this for the longest time, I connect with other women to help them reconnect with themselves. And part of that reconnection is actually building self trust. And if you're like, okay, Jess, this is all well and good, but how do I actually do it? Number one, you need to start by keeping the promises that you make to yourself. Keeping the small promises. Did you promise yourself you're going to go move your body today? Did you promise yourself you're going to make that new project, start that new project for your business? Did you promise yourself that you were wanting to dress up a little bit to go into your 9 to 5 job? Like, keep these promises. Did you promise yourself you're going to eat enough food, drink enough water? And although this may seem so obvious and it may seem like such small things, and I know that the way that the world is going and the way that coaches market, there's always it's like there's going to be my secret ingredient or there's going to be uh there's going to be this one thing that no one's ever heard of. You've heard of everything. You're currently watching this, whether you're watching it here live. I see that some of you are here live, or whether you are watching the replay. You're into personal development. You're into doing the inner work. You do the inner work. You've been doing the things. There is no secret. There's nothing brand new that I'm going to tell you today. You know it, but it's about a matter of doing it. And so it does start with the small things. It does start with, how am I keeping the promises I have to myself? How am I actually listening to myself? Another thing that I would suggest as well is, how are you actually creating boundaries? How are you saying no more? I remember, I'll tell you a bit of a story of how I got so much better at setting boundaries. To be honest, for most of my 20s, and for context, if you don't know, I am 31 in a couple of months. I just need to, whoa, that year of being 30 went so freaking fast. But in my 20s, I was a people pleaser. I lacked boundaries. I didn't really know how to say no. It kind of scared me to say no. And it wasn't, a part of it was a validation for other people. So as I'm telling this story and as I'm sharing this, start to like think of how this relates to you. It wasn't the most validation. It was more that I didn't want to disappoint people. And yes, that's a part of validation as well. But for me, like having a lack of boundaries, not being able to say no, was I just didn't really want to disappoint people. And so I was quite terrible. When I started my business in 2019, it's about 5 years ago now, in 2019. And I remember I started it in Bali. And when I got back from Bali, it was actually COVID. And where I was living at the time was in Perth, in Western Australia. And at the time, we'd gone through this period, and in Perth and WA, we didn't get as affected in the sense of the lockdowns and stuff as some parts in Australia and other parts in the world. But I remember when we were eventually starting to come out of it and you could go out quite normally and all of that, I had terrible boundaries. I got back, I'd been in such an amazing routine. I'd been in an incredible routine of creating my business foundations, of building my business. I was starting from the ground and building it up. And I created these amazing foundations, and I got back. And yeah, I spent a bit of time because we were in lockdown. And then when we came out of that, I was terrible. I was going out on a CEO Monday going for a coffee, or I was going out in the middle of my call day and not being really productive. And then I was getting really, really frustrated with myself because I was thinking, okay, I am not making any progress like I was when I first started my business. Now, at this point, it's about a year and a half into my business. I'm not making progress, not just monetary wise, but in all aspects of my business. I felt like it was monotonous. Like I was just going through the motions. And I really, like, I was just like saying yes to everything. I was like trying to fit things in between my client calls. Pause. Let me have a sip. And I realized that I was really, really shitty at saying no. I was really, really shitty at setting boundaries. I felt so bad. I didn't want to disappoint people, but I started to justify. I was like, I am a social butterfly, and I'm someone who's very, very social. But I was like, what is my value at this point in time? Like, what am I valuing more? Do I actually want to make progress in my business? Do I want to build? Like, I'm a year and a half in. Is this something that I actually want to progress? Do I want to get better? Or am I going to keep complaining about this? And I had to have that serious conversation. And so I put a challenge to myself. I'm like a bit of an all or nothing girl, but I put a challenge to myself. And I said, all right, for the next 6 months, I am not going, I made a rule with myself. I'm not going to see anyone socially Monday to Thursday. The only exception in the next 6 months is if someone has a birthday, one of my close friends or family, and they're doing something on a Tuesday night. That was the only exception that I was making. Friday, I was giving myself time to work, and I was allowing myself, and I'm going to explain this a bit more when it comes to boundaries and self trust. But I was like, okay, Fridays, I'm still going to do some work, but I'm going to only work the morning, and I'm allow myself to kind of like start the weekend, or if I want to go for lunch or I want to go for a dinner Friday night or early, whatever it may be, I'm going to kind of allow that. Because for me, what I wanted was to continue to build my business and have these strong boundaries. And so I put that challenge to myself. I said, for the next 6 months, nothing, not a coffee, not a quick walk, not a quick FaceTime. And I did that. And the funny thing is, is at the start it was a little bit icky because I was saying no. I was saying no when my friends had like a roster day off on a Tuesday. I was saying no to a coast walk, and my mind would go through this battle. And there would be many, many times where I was like, oh, I have actually done a lot of work. Why didn't I just do it? This comes back to what I said at the start of this live stream is if I'd done that, I was not trusting myself. I was breaking my promises to myself if I was doing that. And when you break promises to yourself, you are abandoning yourself. And when you're abandoning yourself, like what relationship is that to yourself? We put so much time and energy and effort into relationship with other people, is we forget to put the time and energy and effort into the relationship with ourselves. And so in this 6 months, even though it would feel icky and even though I would want to abandon myself, and even though I would want to justify and be like, okay, well, I had a busy Monday and now it's Tuesday and I'm making so much progress. Maybe I can just go and do a coast walk. And to some of you listening, be like, okay, it's not that deep. To me, it was. Because when we aren't seeing the progress we want in our life, whether it's our personal life, our relationships, our finances, our business, our career, our health, we need to actually self-reflect and we need to be honest. And a lot of the reasons why there's gaps in between where we currently are and where we want to be is because we are consistently breaking our own self-trust. We are consistently abandoning ourselves. We are consistently saying no to ourselves and saying yes to everyone else. And so I went through the 6 months. It was hard, but I got so good at it. I got so good to the point that it was really, really hard to undo, even now. Now I'm a little bit more, coming in the past, maybe 9 months, maybe close to a year. I'm a little bit more flexible, but it's because I have built that muscle of self trust. So if someone right now, today is hump day, if someone goes, hey, do you want to go for a walk tomorrow being Thursday, I can now, I have this muscle of self trust to know what I really need and what's the best option for me. Can I honestly say that with what I am valuing in life, and this comes to your values and what you're working towards, that if I say yes to this walk, it's not going to impede on my it's not going to impede on my self trust. It's not going to do myself a disservice. And so I know that I kind of went about in like a long way of telling that story, but I really wanted just to highlight the importance of doing things that are going to exercise that muscle, doing things that are actually going to make sure that you're not abandoning yourself when you need yourself. Because the more you do it, you may feel right now like you have no self trust. You can't trust your opinions. You can't trust yourself to make a decision. Have you ever felt like every decision you are needing to make in life, personal, business, career, whatever it may be, you need someone else to validate you, whether that's your friends, whether that's your partner, your boss, your parents, your siblings, family, any family, people on the internet. Sometimes I see people post stuff and they will base like, I'm all for like, what do you guys think about this? But sometimes people will truly base what they are doing in their life or the decisions they are making based on what other people are saying. And to me, all of this is a reflection. And if you're doing that and you're listening that now, and that's truly something you do, to me, that's just a reflection that you don't trust yourself, that you don't trust your own judgments, and something in there has to change. And so that's what I really just wanted to share, wanted to riff about today is like start to understand how you are trusting yourself or the lack of trust that you have for yourself. And so, small things that you can start to do is number one, saying no, setting more boundaries. Sorry, number one was actually keeping the small promises to yourself. Number two, setting boundaries, saying no, asking yourself, is this going to be a disservice to me? Like I could very well have not set that challenge and just kept saying yes, but I would have been behind. That was a disservice to me, disservice to my own goals, a disservice to my own intentions that I wanted to set. And then start to think, what are the ways that I envision self trust? Like, what is the feeling? What does it look like? How would I be acting to myself? And I don't want to give anyone hopes up, but self trust takes time. It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of grace with yourself. It takes a lot of non judgment, no shame. This is something I constantly say to my clients when we are bringing something new. I say to my masterminders is whatever you bring into this, bring it with no shame for yourself, no judgment for yourself. It just is. And if you're watching this live or on the replay and you're thinking, okay, like I have no self trust, I have no boundaries, I like should know better. You know, that's one thing I get when you do this work. I hear a lot is like, I should know better because I do this work, or I listen to resources on this, or maybe you've invested. It doesn't matter if you should know this stuff. The most important thing is whether you're doing it or not. And that's what I say is like you can know a million things. And this is where I was in my 20s. Like I in my 20s, there was a part where I was so deep into personal development. This is way before I started my business, but I was so into personal development. Like I read a lot more than what I read now. Like I'm reading like a book a week every fortnight, but back then, like I would smash it, I would consume. YouTube was really big back then. So I was watching so much personal development YouTube and I knew all of the things. And you could say, you know better, or I should know better, or this is something that I should know when it comes to self trust. But the fact of the matter is, so many of us actually don't take the action. We say we know better. We say we know the things to do. And if you're doing this work, I don't care if you've been doing it for 3 months or 3 years or 30 years, it's all about the action that you're taking. And so rather than focusing on, so many people have these goals of making more money. So many people have these goals of building a business, getting promoted in their career, um, being really, really healthy, attracting their dream relationships, romantic and platonic. But the fact of the matter is, you have to start doing the things that you know. You have to start doing the things that you're avoiding. And in all the things you're avoiding is probably in all the ways you are going to change and all the ways you're going to strengthen that muscle. And it takes so much time. And when you start to tap into that feeling, like I know that feeling of self-trust. I know when I start to not trust myself. I know when I'm betraying myself. I know when I'm abandoning myself, and it doesn't feel good. And just because you get really, really good at building that self-trust muscle doesn't mean you're never going to mess up. It doesn't mean you're never going to not set a boundary or realize, okay, I should have set a boundary there, or I should have said no, or I should have kept this promise to myself. No, you're going to make mistakes and you're going to fail, but failure equals feedback. It is always, always feedback. And really the self-trust, piece of getting better at that comes into the reprogramming. Like, what is your current programming? If your current programming is not trusting yourself, if your current programming is doing things for other people and not yourself, or you feel really bad about it, or mentally you're not that, then you need to start to program. And this is one thing we work on religiously inside of my mastermind, WoMastery. WoMastery stands for Woman Mastery. So it's all about mastering yourself. There's 3 phases: subconscious reprogramming, self-concept and identity, and nervous system regulation and emotional capacity. And we go through those. It's all about mastering yourself as a woman. And the overall theme for all of that is your relationship to self, that how much you trust yourself. Because the more you, and I see this with my client had a big win last night. She attracted $10,000. And it doesn't just come from saying those affirmations or, writing in your journal. It comes from trusting yourself to make the decisions and to do the things that you know are going to lead you into that identity and that self concept of winning, of success, whatever version of success is for you. So, what I will leave you with is start to think, how can I practice this muscle of self trust? Why is it so important for me to achieve my goals and my intentions and to reach success? Define that first, and then know that you need to back yourself. And to back yourself, you need that self trust piece. So, I'm going to leave it there. I have been speaking so much today. I feel like I need to give my voice a rest, and so much yesterday because it was a cold day. But if you love this conversation, definitely, if you're watching here on YouTube, even on Instagram, go subscribe to my YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button. I speak a lot more about this on my podcast, the Jessica Pinili podcast. And if you're like, I need to be supported in this, apply. Show notes below, link in bio for my Instagrammers. For WoMastery Mastermind, it is 4 months. It's all about elevating the success and fulfillment in your career or business, your wealth, and your relationships using subconscious reprogramming. Because if you are programmed a certain way, you are going to get the same results over and over again. And in this beautiful container. And if you're looking for like just a community of like-minded women to support you, to hear you, a community of like-minded women where it's like, I feel like in this day and age, it can be really hard sometimes to find the connections that light you up and leave you. Someone put a comment in our group Voxer the other day. It's like, this is sisterhood that is healing everything that I've needed to heal. And that was just such a beautiful comment. So if you're looking for those conversations, if you're looking for that support, if you're looking to connect with lifelong friends, and that's really what it is, then definitely apply for the mastermind. But I'm going to leave you for this live stream. I'll see you next week at the exact same time. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much.